For me, it's been so much about trying to create really great roles for women in movies, lead roles, and try to make sure we're always past the Bechdel test, and to just make sure that we are putting our money where our mouths are, as far as breaking down that wall that says women can't carry a movie, but audiences won't show up for movies that are starring women. The foreign markets won't show up for movies that are starring women, and just try to break that wall down by actually doing it and proving it wrong. Because everybody can sit there and say, well, that's the rule and you can't do it. Why do we have to accept that rule when it's not really a true rule? Because if women are more than half the population of the planet, it doesn't make any sense that movies starring women will not draw an audience, let alone a female audience. Hopefully we're moving towards parity, but it's going to take a long time at the rate it's going. I mean, Hollywood's starting to slowly wake up, but it's like waking up a behemoth, and you feel it kind of grinding to life, but it's not really. And the fear is always that a cause or a concern becomes just another fad for Hollywood that then is forgotten about once they've set a few examples. You really have to break down that unconscious bias that exists. And it's not like there's a conspiracy to keep women and diversity out of movies. It's just a default setting of the brain. When you hear, every time somebody pitches a movie, it's about a guy who, you hear that a million times. It's like, well, why can't it be about a woman who, and then within that, why can't there be diversity within that? And then behind the cameras, break out of the mold of just, going like, oh, there's a group of men who are these directors, and whatever myths there are that women can't direct action and can't handle a big budget. All these ridiculous self-perpetuating ideas that aren't true. They just exist because they've just been reinforced by the fact that nobody's challenged them, and so they just fall into acceptance, and that's like the banality of bias, and we need to break that pattern. Getting out of the Hollywood's comfort zone of, well, this is the group that has been vetted by us to be worthy, and that group of men is enormous and the group of women is tiny, and there's so many women directors who have worked for years who aren't being considered, and they're part of this enormous pool. And so you almost need to have the Rooney formula, I think it's called. They do it in football now, where it was started by this one coach. I don't know sports, but I know that the rule was that they had to start meeting with complete diversity when they were 50-50 diversity when they were interviewing for coaches, and because of that, the pool started to grow. And it has to be that same way with producers looking for directors, writers, all that. Make sure that you are meeting 50-50 from all the pools, so that you have more opportunity to hear the take of any prospective creative person, because as we know as producers, there's very few people that have the same take, or the take that you want, or the take that you feel is in sync with you. But if you open yourself up to getting outside of your comfort zone of the usual suspects and get into these other ones, odds are you will find somebody you never thought you were going to find, a female director, a diversity director, hopefully both, that has a take that you go, that's fantastic, and then we can start, then they can make movies, and then once they do it and those movies make money, then they suddenly are vetted by Hollywood, and the pool starts to grow, and then we get parity in the pool. And that's really what it should come down to. It's not about affirmative action. It's about giving everybody the chance to present their take on things and to win in a meritocracy, which is what Hollywood always respects. You look at series like, The Hunger Games and Divergent and Twilight and these things, which have these great female, leads, characters, and then those go off and make money. Look, it's Hollywood. We know the only thing Hollywood's going to respond to is cash, and it's not an altruistic business. It's a business like the car industry. And if a car sells a lot, they're going to keep making that car, and if it doesn't, they're going to stop making that car. And so, it's really just big studios taking a chance on that. I mean, I'm just doing the female Ghostbusters, and I really credit Amy Pascal, who when I brought her the idea of doing an all-female Ghostbusters, she jumped on it. And the fact that Sony is now funding this movie that is costing over $150 million, starring 4 women, 3 of them in their 40s, and that's, if we can then have that movie go out and make a lot of money, then they will stop saying, oh, women can't drive these tent poles. And the scary thing is, if for some reason it doesn't make money, they will use it as an example to say why they can't, whereas we've seen a bazillion tent poles starring men that don't do well, and they don't suddenly go, well, I guess men can't star in these tentpoles anymore. So we just got to keep breaking that down, because it's 2016 and it's ridiculous. It takes filmmakers and studios to actively put people in those roles, because it's a very easy default setting of the brain to just go, all right, let's grab the usual suspects. I mean, we saw it with projects like, Gods of Egypt, and where it's a weird default setting. And again, it's not because there is a conspiracy or some sort of, we're going to keep them out. It's just the banality of a default setting of the brain, where you're like, all right, oh yeah, they're great, and you don't go like, wait, actually let's challenge that. Let's think out of the box. Let's, not go with our first instinct, because a lot of times the first instinct is just ingrained in our society and who we are, and it's not going to change until we fight it, because our instinct is not even in sync with the population anymore. I mean, if you look at the makeup of the population, and so, we are kind of the gatekeepers on it in this business, and we are the ones that got to break down the wall, because if we don't, myself included, I'm just as guilty. I've been very good with gender in my movies. I haven't been as good with diversity in the movies, and I fully accept that, and I need to now go to the next level of challenging my thoughts and my decision making, and then also, now that I'm in a position where I can produce, to then do this same thing behind the camera, and if we all start doing that and thinking about it and taking it seriously, and not making it just a fad where we did that and now we're done with it, then we can catch up with the rest of the world in the way that the population is comprised. They just need to tell stories in the most diverse way possible. Again, looking around. Look, if you grow up in a tiny town that's a bunch of white people, then okay, that's your perspective on the world. But anybody else in the world, who has a computer and watches television and sees, and goes to a city, look around you. The world is not comprised the way that movies have generally been comprised for all these years. And the great thing is that new generations are open. It's hopefully becoming less of an issue, because they're seeing it. Look at what happened with gay marriage. It was such a big deal for an older generation. New generation doesn't care. And so the hope is with the new generation. You just worry that the old stereotypes and the old kind of just view of the world, if we keep perpetuating it, we have great power over how people perceive the world. Thank God for the internet, even though the internet it can be a horrible place for empowering those who want to stop that kind of change. At the same time, it's also a place where so many voices and so many different people have the power to get their voices out there through YouTube, through every webisodes, all that, and that's going to break it down. So it is going to break down. Hollywood just has to catch up, so we don't look like we're a bunch of dinosaurs.